Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church here in Plano, Texas. So glad to see all of you here in person, or if you're joining us online, I'm glad you're here. My name is Reverend Dr. Aija Duelm. I am the minister of this congregation. And as we are a liberal congregation, we are a religious congregation, community. And what describes us as Unitarian Universalists as a faith tradition is a little different how other faith traditions describe themselves. We use values that to define us, who we are, what we are about. And we put our values in bylaws.
And the streets.
And yes, and then the streets. So Unitarian Universalist Association is the big umbrella organization that unites all of our congregations, all of our Unitarian Universalist congregations. And so the main bylaws for this association is where our main principles live, including the values. So very recently this summer, these values, our core purpose was updated. We accepted the new value language, and one of those values that is in there is justice. In there we say that we work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all peoples thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression, and we support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our association, and society at large. That's the new language. We're still learning to get used to this new language, but it's very familiar to us. Some of those things we had even before. So as a congregation, we make decisions through democratic processes. As a denomination, we make decisions through democratic processes. And we also have our faith work to do for those democratic processes to continue beyond our congregations and our faith. We have partnered with Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry. And we've done it for years, and working on various social justice issues, here specifically in Texas, in North Texas, where we are. Last month, we participated in UU the Vote card campaign, and there was so much great enthusiasm here for this campaign this year. That's a campaign to encourage people to vote, to participate in the democracy. And this weekend, as part of the North Texas Power the Vote weekend, we have some special guests with us. In this service, we will look at how our faith grounds us, what the spiritual grounding that we can find in our faith that guides our work for the democracy in our local, state, and even national levels. And our special guests today are some very extraordinary people. We have Reverend Erin Walter.
Morning.
We have Reverend Vail Weller, and she's right there. And we have Reverend Dr. Sofia Betancourt with us. So let me tell you a little bit more about them before they get the chance to speak. So Reverend Erin Walter serves as a minister and executive director of the Texas UU Justice Ministries, which is the UU State Action Network for Texas. She's a winner of the Sermon Award from UU Women's Federation and a former journalist. And in 2002, her book, Care for the World, Reflections on Community Ministry, was published by Skinner House Books. She's also a musician, songwriter, singer, and today we will hear her singing with us together with Andrew Solon, the guitarist. She also has a new album out there, so there's no such a thing as a time, and in the Founders Hall you will find some things from her band, maybe you'll tell later, but that you can look at, you can purchase, you can acquire there if you're interested. Reverend Vail Weller, right here, is a congregational giving director at the UUA, so our Unitarian Universalist Association. She manages the annual program fund. So this is that asks each congregation to support the UUA, the bigger association, and the programs that are part of it. And it's through covenantal giving, and we have been giving throughout years to this fund. And Reverend Vail has served in West Virginia, Michigan, most recently in San Mateo, where she still resides with her children, Zen and Dennison, and her husband, David. And glad to have you here. And Reverend Dr. Sofia Betancourt is the 10th president of Unitarian Universalist Association, was elected last year, June 2023. And as a president for the association, she is responsible for administering staff and programs that serve more than 1,000 congregations. She also acts as principal spokesperson and minister at large for the UUA. In her 20-year ministry, she has served as a parish minister, seminary professor, scholar, and environmental ethicist and public theologian. And there was a time in early 2017 when our president vacated the post, and Reverend Dr. Sofia Betancourt served as an interim president, and it was the first woman president that we had. And she's now our elected president. So glad that you all are here, and I see our congregational life staff person from the UU Southern Region is here, Cameron Young, and they were here with us yesterday for the workshop and is back to be with us again. Just a few announcements. Right after the service, we have Becoming UU class, which is a class for those who are interested to learn more about our church, maybe explore becoming members here, or just understand what are we about. This is one of the 3 series. This is our second meeting today. And then later today, Texas UU Justice Ministries weekend events continue. And just recently, I learned that the church where that happens is actually West Side, not Stephen First Church. But it's in Fort Worth, so if you're able to go and be there, please do so. There are a lot more things coming up. Next Saturday we have a Pride event, and if you're welcome to join. There's information in your announcement. Order of service insert. Please look at those and join us. We will begin by lighting the chalice, and today the chalice will be lit by Reverend Vail Weller.
We face a challenge to democracy, a challenge that calls us to hope in moments of despair, a challenge that asks us to persist in the faith that we can and must make a difference. May our flaming chalice recommit us to the truth in our own words and our actions, that we may live as we believe people should live.
A covenant is a promise that we make with one another about the way that we will walk together as a community, as a congregation. Please join me in reminding ourselves of this promise. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. And now I invite Reverend Vail Weller to come give us some greetings from UUA.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for welcoming us here this morning. And as my colleague said, my name is Reverend Vail Weller, and I'm Senior Philanthropic Advisor at our UUA. And I'm here to bring you greetings from more than 1,000 congregations across the association, which is the network of Unitarian Universalists that brings our faith to life. This congregation, of course, is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and there's also a structure and a staff that we call the UUA, people whom we empower to serve our faith both regionally and nationally. And I am one of those. My ministry focuses on strengthening financial support for the movement, particularly through congregational giving to the annual program fund, as well as through individual donors and families who wish to support the larger faith philanthropically. Please feel free to speak with me if you want to talk about that. The UUA has a mission to equip congregations for vital ministry, support and train leaders, both lay and professional, and to advance UU values in the world. You, this is what I want you to hear, make this mission possible through your support of the annual program fund. There are things that no individual congregation can do alone, such as provide large-scale disaster relief, make available the OWL sexuality education curriculum for all ages, credential religious professionals, envision UU the vote, and empower the climate justice revival. We are far more together than we possibly can be as separate individuals or separate congregations, and we need each other. So you know deeply in your bones that the stakes are very high. A strengthened Unitarian Universalism brings hope, healing, justice, and joy to a world in need of our values. Vibrant congregations serve our communities, and a national association serving all of our congregations is vital to the flourishing of our faith. So, I am so glad to be here with you this morning to bring greetings as a representative of the association and to say thank you for all that you make possible, for your leadership, for the gift that your minister and congregational leaders are to our region and to our UUA, and to appreciate you for your generosity and support of the annual program fund. It really does matter. Thank you.
Every day in this nation, we are told a story whose primary purpose is to rob us of our hope. Have you felt this way lately? Right, every single day I encounter headlines, ideologies, campaign tactics, politics, so many stump speeches, right? And they're working tirelessly to make us believe this lie, that the human goodness we preach and teach about in this faith is somehow impossible, right? And the goal is to convince us to give up on the kind of collective power we've already been talking about this morning. The goal is to wear us down far enough that whichever story we are being fed that feels the closest to our values, as unrecognizable as they might be in the telling, will be the only one we can cling to as the way forward, right? And so we're handed hope, but hope corrupted by fear. where community is reduced to the struggle over just two opposing worldviews. I want to remind you of the UU joke that, this many UUs probably has a couple hundred opinions, right? But they're just two worldviews in opposition. The idea of a world consumed, right, by destruction, by war, by disease overwhelms all that we might dream of together and encourages us to turn away from the suffering that is very real in these times, as if living in a sheltered fairy tale can somehow save us from devastation. Beloveds, I am not fighting for a lesser of two evils world. I'm not. I have questions. How has the dreaming of this nation, as flawed as its beginnings most definitely were, been reduced to such tragedy? Where's the radical imagination that invites us into profound possibility for our shared future? We are being sold a story about the future of this country and the future of this world. And instead, I want to remind us that we are the inheritors of a tradition that believes in something infinitely larger. Right? We talk about democracy as part of the bedrock of our religious values and community. And in our recent work that Reverend Dr. Aija was talking about earlier, to describe the shared values that we hold most dear as UUs, our leaders identified democracy as so foundational to our values that it is woven throughout each and every one of them. Right? So not just justice, but interdependence, generosity, transformation, and more. Democracy is that which powers love. Even love, I would argue, between two bunnies. It matters. Marlon Brando was real. He really lived in the White House. It's true. Now, I believe to my bones that our leaders meant a force of potential, possibility, radical inclusion, and a multivocal, multiracial, multi-generational wisdom with the power to overcome the accretions of hatred, greed, and control that poison the storying of our nation. Now, the good news for us is that we are not new to this struggle. Can I just look at my colleague? Bless you. We're not new to this struggle. The good news is that we can draw on one another to resist the voices that would convince us to disengage and to give up on what we can accomplish together. I find it helpful sometimes to snatch that controlling rhetoric back from the hands of those who are trying to convince me of something that I don't really believe, turn it sideways and engage it again from a different perspective. Right? Author and activist Arundhati Roy is incredibly good at this. And in her book, War Talk, she takes on one of the oldest games in the book in trying to silence those who bear witness or offer political critiques. I'm talking about people, ideas, organizing efforts, and more being labeled as anti-American. Who's been labeled as anti-American in this room? Congratulations, badge of honor. I'm serious. So she writes, what does the term anti-American mean? What does it mean? Does it mean you're anti-jazz? Or that you're opposed to free speech? That you don't delight in Toni Morrison or John Updike? That you have a quarrel with giant sequoias? Does it mean that you don't admire the hundreds of thousands of American citizens who marched against nuclear weapons? Or the thousands of war resistors who forced their government to withdraw from Vietnam? Does it mean that you hate all Americans? Listen closely. She says this sly conflation of America's culture, music, literature, the breathtaking physical beauty of the land, the ordinary pleasures of ordinary people, with criticisms of the U.S. government's foreign policy is a deliberate and extremely effective strategy. So I've been sitting with what it means instead to bring the power of thoughtful and values-driven involvement to life here in the United States. Right? Many theologians and religious traditions draw on the moral duty of responsible citizenship. Doesn't that sound exciting? The moral duty of responsible citizenship as an inspiration to greater involvement. But few of them explain the importance of doing so, right? Few pause even to acknowledge those whose labor keeps our nation thriving and alive without any of the benefits that come from legal citizenship. Those who do try to delve deeper seem to be dancing around this idea that our individual consciousness can somehow weave itself together with the consciousness of others into a greater good. I actually think this is true, into the soul, if you will, of a nation. That by our commitment, we can somehow build an America of infinite justice in ways that will one day include everyone and belie the realities of oppression that are a part of our everyday world. So what does it mean instead to hold hope in the idea that our liberation is collective, right? I can't be saved without you. You can't be saved without me. That democracy can guide us toward a higher purpose in our living, and that our greatest freedom comes in caring for one another. For me, the purpose of democracy lives in the collective whole. And when we believe that humanity is inherently worthy and met in that highest value by all of creation, when we give of our time and our resources to strengthen the work of partnership and faithful witness, we are investing in the very wholeness and possibility that our tradition describes. This is the work of a continual revolution that challenges all that would undermine or debase life itself, and that revolution is made manifest by our actions, by knowing that even in the most frightening jail cell, we are not singing alone. Our UUA's organizing strategy team, that's our team that does a whole range of work on democracy, including Side with Love and UU the Vote. Their director, Nicole Presley, describes that kind of faithful labor in ways that I recognize as communal care. She insists that for democracy to work, we need one another, and therefore we have to care for each other. Right? For Presley, that looks like showing up for folks, taking action, all the way from protests to voting booths. It means recruiting poll workers and election defenders. It means bringing water to musicians. Thank you for modeling, right? And to people waiting in line to vote. Do you remember that year? My God. It means helping with vote counting post-election and collaborating with our partners in telling the truth. Our work for democracy is most visible. It just is. In years with presidential elections, it is. But it also calls us to the work of faithful witness through presidential election years and beyond. Whether you are grieving or celebrating or sort of realizing we are where we are, once we know the outcomes this year, let it fuel you to what comes next. You may know that Side with Love understands all of its work as an investment in democracy and in the collective power of community. It is about the promise, the process, and the people. And this means that our labor on behalf of climate justice is an investment in democracy. Right? Our work for abolition is an investment in democracy. Our insistence on bodily autonomy through reproductive justice, LGBTQIA and gender justice and disability rights, it's an investment in democracy. When we organize for anti-criminalization as racial justice and immigration justice, that work is an investment in democracy. And when we show up like we do this weekend for electoral justice, especially in these times, it is a desperately needed investment in democracy. We are a people who answer love's call to invest in community where everyone thrives. We will not allow the persuasive voices of the day to convince us to turn away from the realities of injustice or the false inevitability, supposedly, of a world on fire. I would like the world to no longer be on fire, loves. Yes. Instead, let us know that our values are needed more than ever in common cause for a world that promotes healing, wholeness, and the good. Let us rest our hope in the commons of democracy, the possibility that we hold together for something new, where from our collectively held power, we invest in that world where all may thrive. May it be so. Will you hold on to the possibility of that world with me? Amen. Ashe, and blessed be.
This reading is shared with the author's consent. The author is Reverend Drew Paton from First Presbyterian Church of Berkeley. Side with the people. If they ever ask you which side are you on, tell them plainly, I side with the people, with the precious ones, all, the integral, the soft and the fierce, irreplaceable, the beloved, if only by God and the trees who were born, who breathe and survive. Say, I side with those who keep watch beneath the bright, screaming arc of bombs, with those who hide in dark doorways or through the moonlight flee, with those who stay and fight, and with those kept up all night by hunger and grief and terror and rage, by desperate, unruly hope, who are good and green at the root, who are more than the worst that they've done, who do their best to love and still pass on the hurt in themselves that they hate. But what when they take sides against each other, the people, against even themselves? Side with whatever is human in them, what is fragile and feeling and flesh. Side with the truth of our stories, side with the fact of our pain, side with defiant insistence on freedom, side there again and again, side there today and tomorrow, side there the rest of your life. Side there together until we belong, each one, to every other. If ever they ask you, which side are you on, say, it doesn't work like that. Tell them you side with the people and abide where the people are at.
You know who you are, and you don't owe them anything. Now, I knew with 4 worship leaders, we would not have a short service, and that's okay, but I won't keep you too long. But I want you to know, first of all, what I mean by that, and then I want to tell you about the incredible day we had in Dallas yesterday, and make sure you feel fully invited to where we're headed after this. And I will tell you just a little bit about how you can get involved joyfully in the hard work of the Texas UU Justice Ministry. So in that song, Makeup, you know who you are and you don't owe them anything. You know who you are. My prayer for all of us is that we be seen fully and loved fully for who we are. That's that first principle of Unitarian Universalism, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. You don't owe them anything. That's for the folks who would deny your bodily autonomy, your rights, your health care. And I said we were there outside the governor's mansion for health care. Specifically, that family was seeking health care for their trans child. But when I talk about health care for trans Texans, I'm talking about health care for everyone. We are all connected. And fighting for our rights means we're fighting for everybody's rights. So we don't owe anything. And I'm not wasting a moment of my one short and precious life on those who would deny your rights. But I do feel that we owe something to our ancestors, to the earth, to each other, to that still small voice of truth within ourselves and the holy that is greater and beyond our knowing. And so this work of democracy, this work of things like healthcare and economic justice that doesn't really sound all that spiritual sometimes, it is. It is the faith work of Unitarian Universalism. So, yesterday, my heart is so full. I could have kept knocking on doors until after dark. My mom would have had to call me home from the streets like it was the 80s. But we started at the Sofia Center in Dallas yesterday, which is a Black women-led reproductive justice organization in the community. And I started the day not wanting to knock on any doors. You know, I don't think anybody really wants to go knock on strangers' doors. If you do, awesome. But I was mostly excited to be with my colleagues, Reverend Sofia, Reverend Vail, to be with Sarah Burrell-Harrop, who I think some of you know and is our incredible faith and democracy organizer at TechSouJum, and to be with Nora and so many wonderful people. That was my excitement. Then we went out and we knocked on doors together in pairs, in trios, and the conversations that we had with people were so affirming. And the message that we got from one of the gentlemen, Antoine, who helped Sarah organize yesterday's block walking, was that he told us to remember, even when they don't come to the door, the knock means something. The literature that we're leaving behind, my bracelet says Black Voters Matter, and we were leaving behind Black Voters Matter literature. We were leaving behind Sofia Center information, Vote 1-1, how folks could find where to vote, making sure that they hadn't been purged from the rolls. And because Monday, friends, Monday is the voter registration deadline. And I beg of you, if you think and you know to your core that you're registered, still please check. Because people get purged. When we talk about people voting, it's not, first of all, Texas is not a whatever color state. It is a non-voting state. A very, very small percentage of folks vote, okay? And it's not always that they don't want to. So I just implore you to check and then to text 5 people, 10 people. That's what we were asking folks to do yesterday at the door, and I'm asking you. Make sure your folks know, because if they find there's a problem, it's not too late. Monday is the deadline to register in time to vote in this election. Okay. We came back from door knocking with the energy of just total joy and connection. People were so excited. We were transformed by the experience. So I invite you, if you can, to come to Fort Worth today. Don't worry if you're late. There's time to eat. There's time to learn what to do. If you can come to Westside UU today, if you can get there by 1:30 or 2 p.m., come. It is so powerful to be out in the community. Then I went to First Unitarian Church of Dallas, your sibling congregation, which is celebrating 125 years as a congregation. They were vital to Roe versus Wade. And as I got there to come into what was a church service and a party, there were probably about 50 anti-choice protesters on the street, trying, on our sidewalks of our church. And I told Andrew from my band, it took everything I had not to get punk rock with these people. I was like, hold it together. It's good practice for when we go to the Capitol. You cannot engage. But it hurts your heart, the things that they yell at you. And it hurts your heart to know that people seeking healthcare, women and people with uteruses seeking abortions, have to walk past that all the time. And that's our work. And the ministers of that church did a beautiful job of saying, listen, this is what we are here for, and we've been doing it for 125 years. And so I say to you here at Community in Plano, I know you face similar challenges, being a religious liberal congregation, being publicly for justice, for bodily autonomy, for all the things that we are for. We are not just against things, we are for things. I know it's not easy. And so on behalf of your 40 Texas UU Justice Ministry sibling congregations and everyone out there across this big state, thank you. Thank you for everything that you are doing to be present in your community. There are so many ways to get involved. and I'll just shout out Andrew one more time. He drove here from Austin before church today, which is how I know that you could also drive to the Capitol. It's less than 3 hours. It's less than 3 hours. You can do it. I want to see you in the next music video, in your yellow shirts, singing in the rotunda, going and talking to our representatives. The work we do in this election is what we're going to then take to the Capitol. It's what we're going to take to our school boards. It's what we're going to take to the Plano City Council when there's an issue that you need to address. We build that power. We build these skills. We build the relationships. We strengthen our joy to do it all the time in different ways when we're needed. So our website is txuujm.org, and you know how to find me. Come and find me. Nancy, where are you? Nancy Gage and Reverend Aija know how to find me. I want you on our email list. I want you in our Zoom meetings where we take action. I want to hear what's important in Plano so we can support you. A big part of what we do is bringing state energy to support local issues, because what's happening at the local level is so important. So important. I had readings for you. I had books for you, but I'm going to come back and see you another time. And I'm going to hope that we're going to be knocking on doors. I'll just leave you with this little bit. This is from a book. We had the author in a Texas UU Justice Ministry gathering on Zoom. Some of you may have attended earlier this year. It's called How We Win the Civil War, Securing a Multiracial Democracy and Ending White Supremacy for Good by Steve Phillips. Within this book, there is an entire chapter about Texas. That's how important we are. We're the only state in the book that gets this treatment, because what we do here really matters to the whole nation and to our local communities. The chapter is titled Texas, The Task at Hand is Epic. And the quote actually comes from Crystal Zormenio, from one of our partners, the Texas Organizing Project. And she says this, and I share it with you as an invitation to please, when you leave here today, if you're not on our email list, if you're not involved yet, we want you to be a part of this work. Here it is. Let's not be coy with this. When Texas changes, the whole electoral map resets. This is the last stronghold of power for conservatism. And if it goes, they have to rewrite the whole playbook, the whole everything. So they'll hold on hard and push back as hard as they can in the state of Texas. Are you willing to push back harder? Are you? I hope so, because we need you. The work is hard, but it is joyful, and it's stronger together.
Beloveds, I had beautiful words of benediction for you, but what I actually want to say, just from my own heart, show up. Be the people you already are in the world. Join with Tex Ujim. Join with our organizing strategy team. Bring your values and reset the system. Be Texas with pride. May it be so. Amen.